And we're recording. So again, welcome. So look around you as we get started today. You may want to have, if you have a yoga block, a yoga strap, a bolster, great. If you don't worry about it. Lots of household objects can sub in for those props, and you can do the whole practice without them. They just tend to make it a little bit easier and more accessible for a lot of us, particularly if you've spent a lot of time sitting in a desk chair. So we're going to start on the floor today. We're going to come to a comfortable seat, whatever that means for you. And just as a side note, as we get to that space, you can take your time getting there. There's no hurry. Okay. So when you get to your seat, please know that this practice is wholly yours. So I am here to support the practice, to provide options of things for you to try, but it's really up to you. So Anna tells me that the theme is a potluck, which is such a, I don't know if you're all from the Midwest, but it's such a Midwestern thing, right? A potluck in the church basement. And so this practice is very much a potluck as well. I'm going to make a whole bunch of offers, but you get to choose what works for you. And one of those options could be to not do the pose or the movement at all. And that's totally okay. I have you on gallery so that I can see you all, but I'm not going to, point anything out or ask, hey, why aren't you doing that thing? It's really up to you. This is an hour to connect with the physical body that you live in and just get information back and forth about what that body needs. So most of us spend the bulk of our adult waking life sort of from the chin up, not from the chin down. And so we lose track of what the body has to say. I also should give you the public service announcement that you can do this whole seated portion in a chair. So if being on the floor doesn't sound like a good idea to you today, or if it doesn't feel good when you get there, please just skip it. You can do everything from your mat. And I'm going to grab my trusty mouse so I can let people in here. Awesome. So take a big breath in. And as you exhale, let go of whatever it took to get here this morning. So whatever it is that you've been up to today, whatever you've been doing on your break in between your retreat sessions, try to let those things just exist outside the room you're in for right now. And then on your next inhale and exhale, let go of whatever it is that's coming after this class. So whether there are more retreat sessions or you have something you need to do around the house or a meal, just know that it'll be there when the time is right. And just begin to notice your sits bones here. Feel the sits bones on whatever you're seated on, and then grow tall through the crown of the head. So we're lifting just a little bit through the center of the chest, a little bit through the center of the head, and that's the first movement of the spine. It's called Axial Extension. It's you just a little bit taller. Now, as you're seated, whether in a chair or on the floor, notice where your ribs are in relationship to your pelvis. So for me, my ribs are definitely forward of my pelvis, so I'm going to bring them back so they stack right over the pelvis here. Sometimes that might be the opposite. You might feel like you're rounding into your back a little bit. Try to lift through the center of the chest, bring the ribs right over the pelvis. And what that does is it allows the pelvis and the spine to bear the weight of the upper body without putting undue stress in places that really aren't quite equipped for it. Now you could keep your eyes open or closed today. It doesn't matter to me. There's no magic to closing your eyes. It's really just about limiting the amount of sensory information coming into the brain. As we were waiting to start class, we were talking a bit about the Mandalorian, and in the Mandalorian there's a character called the Child, which everyone else knows as Baby Yoda. And Baby Yoda is an avatar for me of my brain. Means well, but wanders off all the time in pursuit of shiny objects. And so if your mind feels that way today, where it's hard to be in the room, or you feel like you've wandered off to target in your head, know that that is first completely normal. It's what our minds do. And it's also part of the practice. And that might sound really strange, but the practice is always coming back to the moment that you're in right here, right now. And the only way to continually do that is when the mind wanders. So if that happens, know that that's okay. Now, just as an aside, I have muted everyone today just for background noise, but if you need anything at any time, you can hover over your picture or over your name, click on the 3 dots and choose to unmute yourself, and then we can communicate easily. So feel the sits bones grow nice and tall through the crown of the head. And begin to notice the breath. So the breath is an indicator for me. It's a constant companion from the moment we're born to the last breath. That is with us all the time. And we can use it as a guide or as a barometer of how we're feeling, how the physical body is feeling. So if it feels good to you, just follow the breath with your mind's eye. And you could do that a couple of different ways. One is to listen to the breath. So listen to the inhale through the nose, and then listen to the exhale through the nose. You could also feel the temperature of the air as you breathe. So as you breathe in, feel the coolness hit the back of the soft palate. As you exhale, feel warmth as air passes your nostrils on the way out of the body. You could also send your awareness to your navel center and use the muscular movement of the mid-body as something to track, something to watch with the mind's eye. So you could feel the navel move away from the spine on the inhale and draw back and up toward the spine as you exhale. Now, these are simple movements. There's no overt muscular action there. It's just easy movement. And if any of these things, sometimes it's a little strange for me to listen to my breath, you can switch to something else if it's not comfortable. The goal is to make this whole thing as wonderful and delicious as it can be, and you get to choose. So at any time, if I offer something that doesn't sound good to you, or you find yourself trying a movement or a posture that doesn't feel good when you get there, please skip it. Please opt out of it. Let your body guide you. This is especially important since we're virtual. I can't read the room quite as well as we can when we're together, but that's okay. You just get to advocate for yourself, and you know that it's totally okay to make those choices. So if something doesn't sound good or doesn't feel good, opt out of it. Instead, you could come right back here to a long spine, either seated or resting on the floor. So you could lie on the floor and just breathe for the whole hour, and that is yoga. Otherwise, you can swap in a movement that you've seen in another class, or maybe something that has nothing to do with, air quotes around, yoga at all. Continue tracking the breath, and if your mind wanders, it's okay. If your body feels active or restless, that's okay too. Just honor that. Move as you need to. Shift so the body feels good. Changing your seat, changing your position. It's fine. Feel your sits bones on the floor, reaching toward the ceiling with the crown of the head, watching the breath. And when you're ready, let your chin drift gently forward down toward your chest. If your eyes were closed, you could softly flutter them open. And then slowly raise your head back to a neutral position. Feel free to take any intuitive movement at any time during our class today. So if the body is saying, okay, all that sitting up, you know, yoga style was more work than I expected, and now my muscles are talking to me, feel free to make those movements. Welcome to your practice. I'm tickled that you're here. So let's first start with a little warm up of the wrist joint. So circles of the wrist, either open-handed. You could also take a soft fist or a tighter fist. It really depends on the sensation that you feel in the joint. So for me, the more open the hand is, the easier the sensation or the less sensation. And then go the other way. Gently press away as if to say stop. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, rotate your fingertips out to the side. Now, notice what happens on the bottom side of your forearm here. And if anything doesn't feel good, if it hurts, tingles, or goes numb, that's your body saying no thank you. Please stop. And then take another breath. Fingertips come into the center. And then fingertips down toward the floor. Here I like to roll through my fingers. A little stretch across the top of the forearm. And then pause, fingertips down toward the floor like you're showing me your wristwatch. Rotate the fingertips out to the side so it's like little fish fins. And then inside back to center. Shake your fingers, shake your arms. Take any intuitive movements. Now today we're going to move through all 7 directions of the spine. We've already played with the first one. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, if you're seated on the floor, I am modeling crossed leg, but that doesn't mean that's how you have to sit. In fact, you'll see me move throughout our practice while we're seated. I'll often extend one leg and then the other, or change a bunch. And that just has to do with how my knees and my hips feel on any given day. So know that this is not the posture. Feel free to choose your own seat, whatever feels good. You could extend feet out in front. You could bend one leg or the other. You could take one leg out to the side or the other. You could bring the soles of the feet together. Or maybe there's something else that would feel better for you. So you choose. Okay, so 7 directions of the spine. The first one we played with already is axial extension. So again, that's lifting just a little bit so that it's not a big lift and it's not over architected. Like we're not, you know, really lifting high. It's just you a little bit taller than your average posture. Good. Smooth inhales and exhales. And as you breathe out the next time, look over your right shoulder. As you inhale, come back to center. And then as you exhale, look over the left shoulder. So we're checking the blind spot in the car. Inhale comes back to center. Exhale, look over the shoulder. Just following the breath. Now I cue the breath as a reminder to breathe, but you can breathe whenever and however feels best to you. Come on back to center. When it's time, take another breath here. This time our right ear will drift toward the right shoulder. So it's a little flexion in the neck, still lifting nice and tall through the center of the body. Now, if you'd like more sensation, you can add on, or you can simply stay here. Some days, this is plenty. You could reach those left fingertips to the floor if you choose. And if you're really still craving more sensation, you could gently rest the right hand at the crown of the head. So I'm not pulling with my arm, just a little bit of resistance. On your next inhale, release your hands if you're using them. Bring your head back up to center. Take another breath. whenever it comes, and let your left ear drift towards your left shoulder on the next exhale. So again, lifting through the center of the body, you could take the right fingertips to the floor, left hand could reach up to the crown of the head if you wish. But if at any time you choose something, know that you can always back out of it. So if I was, you know, like, oh yeah, it's too much sensation there, I might just take that away, and that's okay too. You don't have to do the exact same pose on each side. Take a breath in, release your hands, release your head. Just gently looking from side to side, noticing how the neck feels. Okay, so next we're going to start to mobilize the shoulders before we start with the next movements of the spine. So beginning here, inhale, float the shoulders up to your ears. So it's like you have no neck at all. And then exhale, soften the shoulders away from the ears. Inhale, floats the shoulders up. And exhale, slides them right back down. One more, just like that. Inhale, shoulders lift. Exhale, release. Now, inhale, we'll take the shoulders up to your ears. Exhale, either big or little circles, back and down, your choice. You can follow your own breath here. If your body ever signals, nah, that's enough of that, that's okay. Just like a potluck, you don't have to eat anything you don't want. Same thing here. One more just like that. And then pause. So we're going to play with that axial extension again, lifting through the center of the chest, lifting through the crown of the head. Chin is parallel to the floor in front of you, softening the shoulders away from the ears. This time on your next inhale, fingertips will lift high overhead, option to gaze at the thumbs if you choose. Exhale, take your right hand to the floor on the right, reach with your left finger. So we're gonna do a little concert wave here. Inhale, come up and over. Plant the left, reach with the right. So following your breath, inhale, up and over. Exhale to one side. So this is movements 2 and 3 of the spine, lateral bending, lateral flexion to the right and to the left, so side bends. And you could make them big or little, you could change them as we go. Now here, on the next time your right hand comes to the floor, plant the hand, pause here. We're just gonna breathe. And then if you'd like, you could open up to the sky. So we're gonna look up toward the sky, the left fingertips could open behind the body just a tiny bit. And then return back to the side bend, option to gaze down at the hand on the floor. Inhale, we're gonna press into that right hand, come all the way up and over. Same thing on the opposite side. This time left hand comes to the earth, reach with the right fingertips, pause here. Smooth inhales and exhales. And then option to open up toward the sky if you choose, taking the right hand slightly behind the body. No pressure in the shoulder joint though. Opening the chest. On an exhale, you could reach to the side, gaze down at your left hand. Inhale, push into your left hand, bring both fingertips high overhead, reach, reach, reach. Option to intertwine your fingers, flipping the palms. They could come either directly overhead or anywhere in front of you, depending on how your shoulders feel today. And then release the arms, circle the shoulders, shake everything out. So I'm going to give you the option always to take intuitive movement. So if we're in a pose, let's say we're here, right? We're holding, and this shoulder hurts or is telling you it needs to move, go ahead and move. Don't wait for me. I promise your body is wiser than I will ever be about what's right for you. Okay. So that was, we've gone through movements 1, 2, and 3. 4 and 5 are twisting to the right and twisting to the left. So we're gonna ground through the sits bones, and this is sort of key. It's stacking the spine. So if I have any rounding or arching in my back as I twist, my spine will try to protect me and the spinal cord by stopping the movement. So the only way to feel sort of easy in a twist is to have a nice long spine, and then all the bones can just slip around with each other, as opposed to struggling like the little protrusions on the sides of the vertebrae don't get stuck on one another. So on an exhale, take your navel and align it somewhere toward your right knee. So it's a soft twist here. My left hand comes to the inside of my left leg. My right fingertips are like a little kickstand on a bicycle. I just want to be nice and lifted, lengthening through the back of the neck, through the crown of the head. Keep breathing. Smooth inhales and exhales, and if your mind has wandered off, it's okay. Lovingly bring it back right here. Now on your next exhale, soft turn, ribs come around toward the right, over the right hip. Just wanted to make sure that everything was okay in the chat. It looks like it is. Good. So your ribs look over your right hip. Now, what you can do, right fingertips are still a kickstand. Left hand can stay at the inside of the left leg. And this is the second third of our twist. So we're just gazing here. We want it to be easy and soft. It's not a muscular, like I'm not pulling with my arms. Sometimes that the temptation is there, right? Like, oh, it'll feel really good if I just do a little bit more. And inevitably, that's when I can't move very well tomorrow. Like my body doesn't appreciate it. So we're going to start nice and slow. Ribs look over the right hip as much as feels good to you. Now, if you'd like to continue the twist, you can turn and look over your right shoulder, keeping the head nice and parallel on the floor like it's on a swivel. So you could look behind you if you wish. Your left hand could stay on the inside of the left knee, or it could cross the body if that feels good to you. You can also move the body out of the way if that feels right, but you want a little bit more space. So we're just smoothly inhaling and exhaling. Now at any time, if your body says, nope, please stop. It's okay, I promise. Now, keeping your body where it is, if you choose, turn and look the other way. So I jokingly call this senior portrait pose. Seems fitting for the fall. It's a little counter stretch for the neck. And then gently release everything to come back to center. Take any intuitive movement as it feels good to you. And then if you have your legs crossed, or you have one particular leg position, I invite you to change them. So I'm going to change my leg crossing, just because as humans, we have one pattern typically that we like the most. And it's good to spread out the wear or the stretching across all the joints equally if we can. All right, so same thing here, nice and tall through the center of the chest and through the crown of the head. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, your navel aligns somewhere near your left knee. Right hand comes to the right, inside of the right knee. Left hand, little kickstand like on a bicycle. Smooth inhale and exhale here. Letting it be as easy as it can be. And noticing if the mind wanders, and if it does, just thank it for doing what minds do, and then come right on back to wherever feels best to you. On your next exhale, ribs will turn to look over your left hip. Your right hand could stay on the inside of your right knee, or it could reach past toward your left knee. It really just depends on what feels right to you today. Keep breathing nice and smooth. And then on an exhale, continue the spiral if you choose, looking over your left shoulder. So my chin is still nice and parallel to the floor. We've moved through all three sections of the spine that can rotate here: lumbar, mid, thoracic, and cervical spine. And then on an exhale, you could keep your body twisting to the left, turn your head to look to the right. Little counter stretch there. And then release when the body says, hey, that's enough of that. All right, shake out the arms. You can circle the shoulders. Take any intuitive movement that would feel good. So we've done 5 of our 7 motions of the spine. The next 2 are forward folding and back bending. We're going to do that today with a pose called cat and cow. Now you can do that either from a seated position or on hands and knees. It really just depends on what's right for you today. I'll demonstrate seated first, and I'm going to turn to the side so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we're seated nice and tall, hands rest on the knees here. As we inhale, the pelvis will tip forward, so like we're rocking forward, ribs pull forward, gaze comes softly to the sky. This is called cow pose. Exhale, we're gonna rock back on those sits bones, press into the shoulder blades, let the head be heavy. This is cat. So again, inhale, tip the pelvis forward, soften the belly, lift the gaze. Exhale, rocks back, press the earth away. So we are going through a forward folding movement and a back bending movement here. Now you could also play with this on hands and knees. Today, if your wrists and knees agree with you, spread your fingertips wide, place your hands under your shoulders or maybe an inch in front of them if you have sensitive wrists. And we're going to draw the navel up toward the spine. Take a breath in and tip the pelvis forward as we do, softening the belly toward the floor, broadening across the collarbones, gazing out into the horizon. This is cow. Exhale, brings the spine back to neutral, passes through table pose, head is heavy, press into the space between the shoulder blades. This is cat. Now, you can follow your own breath here. And if at any time the wisdom comes through, if your body says, oh, I'd love to just hang out right there, or maybe shift a little bit to get just a little more stretch in that spot that I can feel, please do it. That is your choice. It's totally okay to make this one your own. Now, if you're on hands and knees, it's a little bit easier. You could take your head and shoulders to one side and then the other. So it's like you're looking back towards your tail. Inhale, softening the belly, lifting the gaze, is just following your own breath. Option here to add on if you choose. So you could inhale, same way you had before. Exhale, come back to table. If you're on hands and knees, you can take your hips towards your heels, forearms to the floor, head bows. Inhale would come all the way back up, softening the belly, lifting the heart. Exhale, back to table pose, hips to heels, elbows toward the floor, forehead to the floor. So just follow your own breath here. Let it be your own. And if one thing feels good, great. If you want to do more, cool. If not, no worries. One or two more breaths here. Now, if you happen to be seated today, I'll guide you through, and then I'll show the option for hands and knees. So if you're on hands and knees, keep doing cat and cow. If you're seated, you could gently walk your fingertips forward as much or as little as feels good, and then walk fingertips to one side, for a little stretch along the lower side of the body. I feel that right above my hip. Okay, so then you could walk back, the fingers back through when it feels like the right time, and go to the other side. Now, if you're on hands and knees, same stretch, just achieved slightly differently. So I'm going to walk my fingertips to one side and then send my hips away from my fingers, diagonally back toward my heel. And just breathe there. One side might feel different than the other. Then cross the hands to the other side. Send your hips diagonally away from your heels, or away from your hands towards your heels. And then come back to your neutral position. So from here, that could either be seated with a long spine or on hands and knees. So we're going to move to standing next. The good news is you can get there however you want. So the first option is to simply stand up the way that works best for you. If you play with downward facing dog and you'd like to pass through it today, you certainly may. To do that, you'd be on hands and knees. You'd tuck your toes, take a breath in, press into your hands. As you exhale, draw the navel up toward the spine, lift the hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Now this is a pose where you could hang out for a few breaths if it feels good to you, if it's part of your practice, or if it's just a pass through or it looks like torture, please skip it. You can simply walk the fingertips toward the toes or your toes towards your fingers, coming into forward fold. And then as you're ready, simply stand up. Okay. All right. How's everybody doing so far? Good? All right. So find your way to mountain pose. Now I'm going to stand facing the side, and I'm realizing you can't see my feet at all. Let's see if we can fix that. I might be a little bit headless, but that's okay. Okay, so feet point forward, and you'll notice that when I stand in mountain pose, my feet are not super close together. That's not really good in my body. My thighs don't like it. They kind of fight for the space there. Hurts my knees, hurts my hips. So you do what works for you. I like at least a fist width between my toes, maybe more. You get to choose. Gently rock from side to side, feeling your feet on the floor. Breathing. Rock forward and back. So coming up on the toes and back on the heels. And then find stillness here. So we want to find where you feel the most stable, weight equally spread between your feet. And so this is another, like when I asked you to consider where your ribs were in place of in relationship to your hips, we're going to do the same thing, but first we're going to start with the knees. Me, I lock my knees every time. So I'm going to give myself just a little bit of space there so that my legs can be shock absorbers for my spine. I'm going to take my shoulders up, back, and down, and draw my ribs back over my pelvis. And so I feel a little bit more aligned. My weight shifts. Like you can always tell if you're on the balls of your toes, it's probably that your body is shifting forward. And if you feel like you're really back in your heels, it might be shifting backwards. We want to be right over the arch there. And as you inhale, fingertips could lift toward the ceiling, gazing at the thumbs. This time, exhale, bring the hands to heart center, bend your knees. And we're going to pivot over the tops of the femur right at the hip like an action figure or a Barbie doll. And you could reach your fingertips toward the floor or toward blocks or a chair, the seat of a chair, or a coffee table here, or even your shins or your knees. The goal here is to let your spine be nice and loose. You'll notice I have a nice deep bend in my knees. Gently nod your head yes. Shake your head no. Inhale, we'll press into the feet. We're going to hinge up, come up all the way like an action figure. Fingertips could reach to the sky. Exhale, hands to heart center. All right, so play with the position of your feet. And as you fold forward, right? So if I, just for a quick moment, as I fold forward, if I keep my feet super close together, my stuff runs into my stuff. So my midsection runs into my legs. And sometimes that feels good and sometimes it doesn't. So on the days that it doesn't feel so great, I simply heel toe my feet a little wider apart, bend my knees, and suddenly I have room for my body. All right, so coming all the way back up again, we're gonna play with that whole sequence one more time. Adding on, inhale, fingertips lift high. Exhale, hands to heart center, bend the knees, softly pivoting over the tops of the femurs. Reach fingertips toward the floor or blocks or shins, head is heavy. Now on your next inhale, bring your palms to your thighs and then press the spine long, half lift. So you'll notice my spine is nice and long, my legs are still bent, that's okay. My hamstrings will not allow me to do both. And if I have a choice, I'm gonna take that long spine over my hamstrings. On an exhale, bend the knees even more, lay your body back against the legs, fingertips toward the floor, head is heavy. Inhale, press into your feet, especially the heels. Use the power of your legs to take the torso all the way upright. Exhale, hands to heart center. Good. So this is a sun salutation. It's the first quarter of, or it's called a quarter sun salutation. We'll do one more, just like that, nothing new, so you can play with it a little bit more. Inhale, fingertips lift. Exhale, hands to heart center, bend at the knees, pivot, sending your sits bones to the wall behind you, fingertips toward the floor, head is heavy. Inhale, palms come to the thighs, press the spine nice and long, halfway lift. As you exhale, bend the knees, fingertips to the floor, head is heavy. Inhale, press into the feet, hinge up from the hips, fingertips sweep. Exhale, hands to heart center. So pause here with hands in prayer position, also known as Namaste, or in the yoga tradition, it's Anjali Mudra. It's a mudra or a gesture of gratitude. So today, the gratitude is for the practice, the ability to connect back with the body that we live in, and for being given this day. Soften the hands to your sides. Turn to face the long edge of your mat. So we're going to play with a couple of poses that you see on absolutely every yoga magazine and now even pharmaceutical commercials. Step your feet wide apart, whatever that means for you. Now my toes are pointed toward the long edge of the mat for now. And I'm going to notice my legs. Now I lock those knees every time, so just give yourself a little space if you do that too. And then we'll pivot our right toes toward the short end of the mat here. So we're going to turn those out. And before I bend my knees, I'm going to look and see that my right heel is, if you drew a line back to your left foot, that it would align up with roughly with that left arch. Okay, so you're like standing on a balance beam, for lack of a better way to put it. We're going to bend the front knee. And as we do, one thing to keep in mind, it's probably the only thing I really get persnickety about, is keeping your knee either above your ankle or behind it. If it feels like your knee is going to pop forward of that ankle more toward the toes, wiggle your toes a little further away and then bend the knee. And that just protects that knee a bit. We only get 2 and then we have to buy more and that's a drag. So option 1, here you have that front knee bent. Back leg is nice and strong. That's that anchor, really pressing into the pinky toe side of the back foot. Hands come to the hips here. If you would like, you could stay right here. So this is warrior 2. Now, if you'd like to play with arms, you could float the elbows, palms face up. This is good if you have sensitive shoulders. If you're feeling like you'd like a bit more of a challenge today, or your shoulders are not sensitive, you could reach your fingertips long, palms face down. And I'm going to turn and gaze over that right hand. This is warrior 2. So we're equally bending into that front knee, pressing into the back foot, gazing out in front of us. Now on your next inhale, wherever your hands are, take your left hand to your left leg, right hand reaches up and over, still bending in that front knee. So I always want to stop bending that front knee. We want to keep that bend so we have a stretch along the side body. Inhale here, exhale, back down to whatever expression of arms feels good to you today. Gaze out over that right shoulder. Now, let's do that one more time. Inhale, take your left hand to your left leg, right hand reaches long overhead. And come on back down to warrior two. Gaze out over the fingertips here. Now, if you wish, on your next inhale, you could bring your right hand to the middle of your right femur. Your left hand could come to your hip. We're going to lean so that the body is diagonal. You could also rest the forearm here if that feels good to you. And then if you choose, you could reach that left hand long, coming into extended side angle. Now, if this doesn't feel good in that upper arm, take the hand back down to the hip. It's totally fine. The action is in the body here. Inhale here, exhale, come all the way back to whatever your warrior two is. And then soften the arms, straighten the front knee, pivot your right toes to face the long edge of the mat. Now step your feet together, shake out the legs if you wish. We're gonna do the other side, but this is not how most of us stand. So if your feet are talking to you or your legs are talking to you, just be kind to the body that brought you. I want you to be pleasantly surprised at how you feel later today and tomorrow, not thinking of yoga as, ooh, man, what did I do? All right, so step your feet wide apart again. Toes point toward the long edge of the mat. This time, pivot the left toes to point toward the left side of the mat. Gaze down. Notice if your front heel, your left heel is in alignment with your right arch. Okay, so from here, bend into the square of that front knee. You could stay right here. This shape is warrior two. It's really all about the powerfulness of the legs and the torso. If you'd like to add arms, you could, either palms up or down. Gaze out over the front hand. Breathing. Letting it be nice and easy. Inhale, takes your right hand to your right leg, left hand reaches long, still bending into that left knee. Take a breath in. Exhale back down, gaze out over the front fingertips. Inhale, let's do that again. Right hand to the right leg, left hand reaches long. Inhale and exhale, back down, gaze out over the front hand. Now on your next inhale, you could take your left hand or forearm to your left femur. Right hand could come to the hip or reach long, bypassing the ear in side angle pose. Take a big breath in, press into your feet, tip back down to warrior two. We're almost there. Soften the leg, soften the arm. Pivot your left toes to face the long edge of the mat. Heel toe your feet together. Shake out the legs. Stretch out the feet if they're talking to you. And then we're going to play with our balance pose today. So tree pose. Hands come to heart center if it feels good to you. Take a breath in, and as you do, shift your weight to your right foot so much that you can hover your left toe or kickstand the foot against the standing ankle. Now you could stay here. This is tree. You can grow branches if you'd like, pine, cactus, maple, it's up to you. You could also pick up that free foot, pressing it against the calf of the standing leg. Now you might pick up the foot and set it down and pick it up and set it down. It's all tree. Breathing in and out. And then on your exhale, arms come to the sides, foot back to the earth. Shake out the right leg. Toes point forward. Hands to heart center. Softly shift the weight to your left foot. Excuse me, so much that you can hover your toe or kickstand the foot breathing. You could lift the foot if you choose. You can grow branches if you choose. It's all up to you. And then on an exhale, release everything back down toward the floor. We're going to come back to the floor for our final stretches and our little Shavasana. So come to the mat. When you get there, rest on your back with your knees bent. You can get there however works best for you. Take a sip of water as you go. If you need to add clothes, go ahead. And then find your way to your back. Take any intuitive movement that feels good. Drawing the right knee and the left knee into the chest here. You could, from here, some days I like my knees close together. Other days I like them nice and wide apart. I'm going to circle my ankles first one direction and then the other. And pause. You could rock gently from side to side, a little bit of massage for the spine. And then gently release one foot to the floor and then the other foot to the floor. When you're ready, cross the right ankle over the left knee. So we're going to start right here. And you could stay right here. Sometimes this is plenty. We're just opening that right hip a little bit. Arms can be wherever feels good to you. Feel your breath rise and fall. Feel the body rest on the earth. If you'd like more sensation today, you could draw the left knee in toward your chest, holding on to the right shin. But if that feels not so good, or if you're happy where you are, stay there. It's perfect. Keep breathing. And then gently release the foot back to the floor. If it's lifted, take the right foot down to the earth, cross the left ankle over the right knee. Keep breathing here. Option to lift the other leg if you choose. You might on one side and not the other. You might not on either side. It doesn't matter here. It's really more about cultivating that listening, that communication between your body and your mind, and fostering a sense that the body knows that you'll honor what it asks for. Gently release your foot back to the floor, unwind your knee, or your legs rather. So with your knees bent, take a breath in, and as you exhale, let your knees drift just a couple inches to one side. So a little baby recline twist. Inhale, bring the knees back up to center. Exhale, knees to the other side. So following the breath through the windshield wiper motion here. Once more to each side. And then if there is a movement that would complete your practice today, if you have a yoga practice and there's a pose you'd like to do that either we haven't done yet or one that you want more of, you could take that now. Otherwise, you could extend the legs long on the floor, toes falling open to the corners of the mat. resting on the earth. Now you could place a cushion or a pillow under your knees if that feels good to you, or if you don't happen to have those things handy, bend both knees, plant your feet, step them wide apart, and then let your knees come into touch like a little tent. You could also lie on one side with a pillow under your head. You could take a seated final relaxation pose. Anything that feels supportive and easy. Take a big breath in, and on your exhale, let go of the entire practice, how you felt about it, whether you thought it was awesome and it felt good, or whether you were struggling, just letting it go, because the reality is all the magic happens here. In releasing the outcome and releasing the practice without holding on to whether it was great or maybe not your favorite. And simply coming back to the present moment. Feel the belly rise and fall. With every exhale, feel your body settle into the mat beneath you. Fully supported. I'm going to be silent for a few minutes. I'll bring you back when it's time. Teach me how to trust my heart, my mind, my intuition, my inner knowing, the sensations of my body, the blessings of my spirit. Teach me to trust these things so that I might learn to love beyond my fear, and thus walk in balance with the passing of each glorious sun. Begin to deepen your breath. You might wiggle your fingers and toes, stretching and pointing your feet. You might circle your wrists and ankles. You might take your fingertips high overhead in a long body stretch, or maybe draw your knees into your chest, giving yourself a squeeze. You could bring the palms of your hands together, rubbing them back and forth to create friction and heat. You could use those warm hands to rest over the sockets of your eyes or to massage the muscles of your face. Taking this opportunity to thank yourself for the investment of time and energy to be here. Thanking your body for showing up for you today the best way it knows how. When you're ready, slowly roll to one side. Take a round or two of breath here. And then slowly make your way to a comfortable seat. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. I am so glad you were here. The light in me sees and honors the light in each and every one of you. I wish you a wonderful rest of your retreat weekend. Be safe, be well, and I hope to see you sometime soon. Namaste.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
You are so welcome.